this percentage here is not gonna be a fixed value. Remember that progression must be decided by a countdown, this component from here. So first things first, I have to include it in the main module. So if you go to app module TS, here you can import it from /countdown/countdown.component, the countdown component class, and I have to import it in declarations, countdown component. So great, it's imported, now you can use it, and this component needs an input property that will be called init and the property count. So if we come here, you first need this input import, so you can use the decorator. Now you can use this input decorator and then create the init property that is an entry value. And I haven't said it's going to be a type number. I can set the initial value to null, although I expect it to be initialized from the outside, but this way I make sure I have an initial value. And I will also need a counter property that's going to be type number, public, so I can access from the template. That is the property that will handle countdown of this component. So init is just the initial value, but counter will be changing with every tick. Okay, so you have this component that can be used with the init property. So I can come here and make an app countdown with an init property where I will give a value of 10. So if you come to see the result, you're only seeing this countdown component text, and that's because that's what the template says, but I want to change it. So I came to countdown component.html and I can replace the text by the counter property with double curly brackets to get the value. Now I can see the initial value 0, but you don't want it to be 0, you need that countdown. So moving to the countdown component, what you have to do is to create a method start countdown that will init the countdown starting on the init value. So I start creating this start countdown. That is a method that checks if you have this init value and also if this init value is greater than 0. And then you're gonna say that this.counter is equal to this.init. So you initialize the counter and then you call the method that's gonna start the countdown, do countdown, that you are gonna create right now. So I move below to create this do countdown. Very simple, it's gonna use the setTimeout function. There is a method that allows you to call a function with some delay. So I can pass inside an arrow function, and inside this arrow function I decrease this.counter by 1. Then I call this.processCount. That is a method we will create right now to check if we have arrived to the end, and we'll throw an event for every tick of the counter so we can see the evolution of the counter, and this is going to happen every second. So every second we are calling this function, we are decreasing the counter, and we are calling a method that is going to handle some things about the count. I create now this process countdown. Okay, what this method is going to do is to emit an event with the current count. At this point we don't know how to emit events, so I'll write some command for later, and then I'll write a console log with the current count. And then also in the case that the counter arrives to the end, I can emit another event. So if this counter is 0, I can emit an event counter end that I'll show you soon how to do it. And of course the console log counter end. Otherwise, I will call another time this do countdown. Okay, so when I execute the countdown, I put a timer, and then after 1 second, it decreases the counter and calls this process countdown. Check this typo. So it calls this process countdown that will emit some events, and if the countdown has not finished, it calls another time this do countdown method. So I have a method to initialize the counter, a method that handles the countdown, and a method that checks if the countdown has finished or not, and that emit events. But I need to initialize this countdown somewhere. This is something that you can do with the lifecycle of components. All components have some lifecycle events, and there's one that is called onInit. So I can import this onInit. I can say that my class is implementing this onInit interface, and this forces me, of course, to implement the methods of this interface. So I have to create this function ngOnInit, and here inside this method I can say what I want it to do in the init phase. In my case, this start countdown. If I move to see the results, I can see that here's a countdown that at the moment I refresh the page starts from 10 and it's going down until arriving to 0. Also, you can see on the console how on every tick I am printing this information out until I arrive to 0 when I print this counter end. However, check that the progress bar has not been updated because we haven't touched this yet. And just let me make a little change on the SAS side so the counter can look bigger and nicer. I'm touching this host, doing a width 100%, a center text with text align, and with a font size of 4EM. Okay, now if I move to see the result, I can see a bigger counter now in the middle.